Level 1, the recruit. You're 18. You sign at a recruiting station next to a nail salon and a phone repair shop. The recruiter calls you soldier before you've done a single push-up for the army. You think that word means something already. It doesn't yet. You ship to basic training. Your head gets shaved before you've even learned anyone's name. A drill sergeant screams 2 inches from your face about your posture, your shoelaces, your breathing. You cry in a bathroom stall on day 4 and never tell anyone. 10 weeks later you graduate. Your dad, who never once said he was proud of you growing up, says it twice in one afternoon. You believe, for about a week, that you've arrived. Then you get to jump school and realize you haven't arrived anywhere. You're just a private with a new patch. Level 2, the candidate. A year in, you volunteer for selection. Everyone calls it the course like it's one thing. It isn't. It's weeks of land navigation with a rucksack that never gets lighter no matter how much water you drink out of it. Nobody grades you out loud. Nobody tells you your times. You walk 14 miles through pine trees in the dark, certain you failed, and you didn't. Men quit around you constantly, not dramatically, just quietly raising a hand to a truck that seems to appear out of nowhere. You never see them again. In the final week they put you with strangers and give you a log to carry across a field for no reason anyone explains. You realize partway through that the log was never the test. How you talked to the man next to you was. At the end, a list goes up on a corkboard. Your name is on it, second from the bottom. You don't care where on the list. You just care that it's there. Level 3, the student. The qualification course takes almost 2 years, and it rearranges you from the inside out. You learn small unit tactics in the woods until moving quietly becomes something your body does without your brain being consulted. You're picked for communications, so you spend months learning radios and encryption and how to build an antenna out of wire and a tree branch when the real one breaks. Then comes the language, yours is Korean, and you spend 6 months failing quizzes until one day, without noticing the exact moment it happened, you're thinking in it. The last test is a month-long exercise where you're dropped into a fake country and have to win over villagers who've been paid to make your life difficult on purpose. An old man playing a village elder spits at your boots for 3 straight days before he finally lets you sit at his table. You pass. They hand you a green beret in a room with folding chairs. Your mother, who has never once cried in front of you, cries. So do you, though you'll deny it for years. Level 4, the new guy on the team. You get assigned to a 12-man detachment where every other man has already been somewhere you haven't. You're the communications sergeant, which means you're the guy the whole team stops functioning without, and also the guy nobody talks to for the first 3 months. Your first deployment is the Philippines, training a local unit to hunt an insurgent cell that's been bombing marketplaces. The soldiers you train are good men and bad men mixed together, and you never get a clean way to tell which is which. At night you run patrols with them through jungle so thick your night vision shows you nothing but green static. Your team leader gets hit by shrapnel from a booby-trapped fence post. You call the medevac yourself, hands steady in a way that surprises you. He lives. You don't sleep that night, or the next one. You call home on a satellite phone that costs the army $11 a minute. Your girlfriend asks if you're safe. You say yes. It's the first lie of many you'll tell her for her own good. Level 5, the specialist everyone relies on. For deployments in, you're the senior commo sergeant, the guy new guys ask when something breaks. You're in a valley in eastern Afghanistan now, living in a compound at the end of a road that turns to mud every spring. You drink tea with the same 3 elders every week and slowly learn which one actually wants peace and which one is just waiting to see who wins. You build a radio relay for the local police that probably saves lives you'll never hear about. You also watch, over 2 deployments, a kid you used to give candy to grow old enough to carry a rifle for the other side. Your team takes its first real loss here. Your youngest team member steps on something buried under a footpath he'd walked 100 times before. You're the one holding the tourniquet when the helicopter lands. He keeps both legs, barely. You visit him at Walter Reed a year later and he asks about the guys still on the team like he never left. You don't know what to say to that kind of loyalty, so you just sit with him. Level 6, the team sergeant. 15 years in, your knees sound like gravel when you stand up. You're the senior enlisted man now, the one the young captain leans on even though he outranks you, because rank and experience are two different currencies and everyone on the team knows it. You've buried 2 teammates by now, one to an IED, one to his own hand 2 years after retirement, which somehow hurts worse because there was no enemy to blame for it. You deploy to a country you're told not to name in any letter home. You call in airstrikes from a rooftop, coordinating with pilots from 3 different air forces in 2 languages that aren't your first. You lose your youngest weapons sergeant to a sniper in a city whose name will never appear in a headline. He has a 1-year-old son. You write the letter to his wife yourself because you can't make yourself hand that job to anyone else. You fly home for the funeral and stand at the edge of the grave holding a flag you'll place in her hands in a few minutes, and for just a second you forget how to breathe. Level 7, the operator nobody can talk about. A man in plain clothes taps you on the shoulder one afternoon and asks, without using any names, if you'd like to try out for something. You know exactly what he means. The selection for this one makes everything before it look like an introduction. Out of a couple hundred candidates, a small handful make it through. The training that follows teaches you to do things with a rifle that don't feel physically possible the first 100 times you attempt them, and feel automatic by the 2000th. Your missions after that don't have names you're allowed to say out loud, in countries you can't write home about. You go in, you do the job, you leave before sunrise. Your spouse stopped asking where years ago, not out of indifference, but because the not knowing became its own kind of peace. You are, for the rest of your working life, a name that will never appear in any newspaper, doing things that will never be acknowledged, succeeding in ways nobody will thank you for and failing, on the rare occasion you fail, in ways the whole world eventually hears about. Level 8, the one who commands the ones like you used to be. 22 years in, you're commanding a squadron of the exact kind of operator you spent a decade being. You don't kick in doors anymore. You sit in an operations center watching a drone feed at 3 in the morning, and you're the one who says yes or no to a strike that will be over in 4 seconds and will follow you for the rest of your life either way. You brief people whose names appear in the news constantly, in rooms where your own name will never be written down. You go home and your teenage daughter, who you've missed more birthdays than you've attended, answers your questions in the polite, careful way you'd answer a stranger's. You tell yourself there's still time to fix that. You lose a team overseas to bad intelligence, 5 men, an ambush nobody saw coming. You stand on a runway at 2 in the morning as 5 flag-draped cases come off a transport plane, and you tell 5 families the truth about how their sons and husbands died, except for the parts about the intelligence failure, because that detail won't help anyone sleep. You keep a list of their names in your desk drawer. You read it before every decision you make from then on. Level 9, the general. You're a flag officer now, in charge of thousands of operators spread across dozens of countries most Americans couldn't find on an unlabeled map. You brief people whose faces are on the news every night, in a room where phones aren't allowed. A name comes up, a bomb maker, a hostage taker, a weapons program, and the room turns to you for the options. You give 3. Small team, quiet, in and out. Or larger, louder, harder to hide. Someone above you picks 1. 24 hours later, men you've never met are moving because of a sentence you said in a windowless room. You go home and your wife asks how your day was. You say, fine, and you both understand that word now means something closer to, several hundred lives moved today because of decisions I made, and neither of you tries to unpack it further. Level 10, the man on the porch. You retire on a quiet Tuesday with a small ceremony and a letter you'll never reread. You move somewhere with a porch and actual silence, and it takes you the better part of a year to stop flinching at cars backfiring 2 streets over. Your hands shake slightly these days, nobody mentions it and you don't explain it. Your granddaughter runs to you every time you visit and calls you by a name that has nothing to do with rank, and something in your chest unlocks a little more each time she does it. You go to too many funerals for men your age who made it through decades of combat only to lose the fight against everything that comes after. At a graduation ceremony one spring, they ask you to say something to the new class of Green Berets standing in front of you looking impossibly young. You tell them the truth, that it will cost them more than they can currently imagine, that the brotherhood is real and so is the bill, that they should hold on to whoever's waiting for them at home like their life depends on it, because in a way it does. They nod politely. They don't believe you yet. You didn't either, at their age, standing exactly where they're standing now. Somewhere tonight, an 18-year-old is signing papers in an office he'll forget the address of in 20 years. He thinks he knows what the word soldier means. He's about to spend the next 3 decades finding out. The cycle keeps going, one recruit at a time.